All right. Hello. Welcome to Sibs Read Smut podcast. I'm Helen.
I'm Ned.
This is a podcast where we read, rate, review, and tell jokes about our favorite romance novels. We talk about all of the details in these books, start to finish, including all of the twist turns and the ending. So there are spoilers in this podcast. Go read these books if you want to, or just listen because it's a romance novel, so there's not a lot of mystery to how it ends. But we're excited you're here. Thank you for listening. And we're going to be talking about Lucy Score's Things We Never Got Over today. This is one of my all-time favorite novels. So we're going to have Ned give you a summary of the book, and then we'll jump into it.
Love me some Lucy Score.
I do too.
The Things We Never Got Over, the very rough overview of this book is, after the worst day of Naomi's life, she runs away from her wedding and goes to clean up a mess made by her twin sister in the town of Knockemout, Virginia. Awesome name.
Great name.
She has the displeasure of meeting Knox in the local coffee shop when he mistakes her for her terrible twin sister. They fight, they fuck, they live through a shooting, a kidnapping, and a bunch of crime. What kind of town is this? All right.
Kind of in that order. Is that the right order? It might be.
Yeah, there's some more. There's more fighting thrown in there throughout. But yeah, there is a lot. And just as an overview too, there is an undercurrent of menace throughout this book.
That's a really good way of putting it. That's what I love the most, though, about this book is that it's not just like your standard romance, like, oh, he's so hot. We met in a cafe. Let's bone. It was like, oh, and there's like a crime syndicate. And like the evil twin sisters caught up in this. And there's all this intrigue behind it, too. So I love this entire series. I'm reading the third book of this right now. This is the first book out of three so far. Is that
no?
It?
I think it's only 3 in this town.
Okay.
I loved, after finishing the first book again for this podcast, I then immediately read the second one again, and then now I'm like 2 chapters into the third one again on my second read.
You've already read the third one?
Yeah. I went through and read them back to back to back.
You read too much.
Yeah, but what I mean, right off the bat, there's some interesting, playing with art, tropes of the genre. Like, what would you call this meeting in the coffee shop? Like a meet bad? She walks into this coffee shop and she sees a mugshot of her on the wall, but it's not her, it's her sister, and she's like, deja vu, this is weird. I have a never let this person into this coffee shop, poster of me, but it's not me, and I've never been to this town before. And like Knox is pissed. He comes in hot, and I'm like,
that it's Tina, the twin.
And I'm like, is that a meet bad?
I think what took me away with this novel the first time I read it, and it was less this time, the second time I read it, because I think I knew what I was getting into, and I've read so much romance since the last time I read this, but you are just swept into the story. Like, you're not really given a lot of background. Like, suddenly, Naomi, which is Imone backwards. I will never read the name Naomi and not think that. She is just, like, suddenly in this town, and she's there to save her sister, and this man, this like asshole man comes in and starts yelling at her thinking she's Tina, and you don't find out the reason for a lot of these things until like you are reading through the book. And so I remember the first time I read it being like, wait, did I miss something? Was there a book before this? What was I missing? And so I think Lucy Score does a really great job of making you feel like you're just there and you're witnessing this and like play along until you figure it out. I love that. So she's like, in this town, I would say it's very much establishing the enemies to lovers trope of like they're strangers. They have to have a reason to hate each other in the beginning if they're going to do enemies to lovers. So him being a dick to her in the coffee shop was and then not really stopping being the dick. And then
Yeah, he never stopped throughout the entire book.
that was kind of his shtick the whole time, was like, I'm a grumpy jerk throughout the whole thing, with a heart of gold who will never like tell you.
I'll take care of you. I'll protect you, but like, fuck you,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Which I kind of appreciate.
Yeah, I mean but she calls him out on his shit like right away. Like, he's like, oh, did you leave your phone at home next to your manners? Like a couple of times throughout, she like calls him out on his just whatever, and their banter back and forth is great from the get go. Their jibes back and forth, and their kind of sass and snark is great. And to your point of like the world building, she does drop you off in this town, which is a small town. Everybody's in everybody's shit, but she slowly rolls out the characters, and so that you're not overwhelmed. Like I just started reading or listening to the Magnolia Parks book 1.
Yeah, same.
And there is a ton of characters that she introduces in like the first 3 pages, and I'm like, that's too many characters. In this book, she introduces you to the coffee shop owner, and then to Knox, and then the next chapter to the brother, and then slowly over the course,
my favorite character.
Yeah, slowly over the course of the first 12 chapters or 15 chapters, you start meeting the ever expanding universe of all the characters in this town, and it's very well done. You're never overloaded with too many character names at one time or too many descriptions, and you're never trying to figure out who's who.
I agree. I think she layers them on so that you don't forget who people are either, which is unique. And I will say, this book is not on audio. I don't think it has an audiobook on any platform. So you have to read it on the page, which is, in my opinion, makes me slow down and like actually listen. And it takes me longer to read things on the page than to listen to things at chipmunk speed. So I feel like maybe that's why. Also, I know who characters are more, and when you see their name on a page, it's different than like hearing it and in one ear out the other.
Yeah, true. And yeah, I mean, you have and the names are all kind of emblematic of the characters. Like they explain at one point that Knox is named after Knoxville, where his mom got pregnant with him. Nash is named after Nashville, where he was conceived.
Was that in this book, or was that in a different?
I think.
See, this is your issue. You read too much.
I think he explained it to Naomi at some point in later in the book, but yeah, and this kind of back and forth. And Knox and Nash, who is his brother, who's also the chief of police, have a very fraught relationship. So you have a twin and a good twin and a terrible twin, and their family dynamics, along with their parents and whatever else. And then you have Nash and Knox and their grandma and their family dynamics. It is a very weird kind of semblance of found family versus made family, because Lucian, the third friend of the Nash-Knox trio, is like, family friend, and all of their people that they've grown up with, create this weird community where like there's bikers, and then there's, coffee makers, and then there's, people in the gray of the law, and then there's cops, and like all this weird mishmash of like small town living. It was very weird.
Called that small town, like the small town trope of like all of these different kind of people coming together, and they all have each other's backs, and they're all very different people, but at the same time, then they become a family. I would say like family dynamics is one of the larger themes of this novel in general, because you're really dealing with Naomi and her twin sister Tina, and the fallout from Tina's behavior, and then Naomi coming to like save her, and meeting the twins' daughter, so Naomi's niece that she didn't know existed until she showed up. So chapter
Waylay.
2, you're introduced to Waylay, this 11-year-old who's my favorite character in the entire book. And then so there's the whole Tina Naomi family tree, and then on the other side is Nash, Knox, and Liza J is the grandmother. And then so they're brothers, and they have this tension. You don't know what's going on with them until like halfway through the novel, and then you find out that like Knox won the lottery, and that this is causing a lot of issues with people in his life because he's trying to give people money.
Yeah,
I might be simplifying it.
What an idiotic reason to get mad at each other over. So Knox gave Nash a bunch of money and told him to quit the police department, and Nash said "fuck you" and dumped all the money into a new police center and library, and then named it after Knox. Yeah, named after Knox.
Too close.
And it's like, and then they were pissed at each other for 3 years over it. And it's like, okay. I mean, arguably, I'm like, is it better that they didn't fight over a woman, or is it stupid that they were fighting over money this whole time?
It felt a little bit forced. They needed a reason, right? Like you said, to be angry with each other. That was part of their banter and part of what drove the story forward a little bit. But then, I think there's a lot of layers to it, and they try to explain the money thing in the context of Nash and Knox's parents. Their mom died when they were young, I think from cancer, and then the dad could not deal and went off the deep end, ended up leaving them. Went into pills and booze and couldn't hold it together, and went homeless after a while, and then just dropped out of their lives. So the dad became homeless, and then they were essentially raised by Liza J and the town, which is part of that small town trope. And then you come to find out later that a lot of Knox's issues throughout the entire novel have to do with their dad and feeling not wanted, he couldn't hold it together enough to stay with them. And Knox was going. They're too close. They're both 4-letter names of just cities. It's hard. So he was going to a homeless shelter like an hour away and giving haircuts, and so he would see his dad there and give him money, and it's part of the dynamic of this family now. So Knox getting that money and how it changed his relationships with Nash and Liza J and the dad and the town is a large part of the story. I mean, and it set him spinning out. I mean, that was the whole impetus for which there was a longer than not low point in this book. I mean, like when Knox spun out, that was not that. I mean, that was like what 60% through, and then they were pissy with each other. Was it later than that? I think it was a little bit later because maybe like 7. Like I think honestly, I feel like it was maybe about 75%. Because then they stayed at the low point until the end. I mean, well, do we want to talk about the crime syndicate and the shooting and the? How do we explain all of that?
There's so much. Well, and here's the weird thing though too is like there's so much that's going on, but she wove the story together so well that it's like where I felt with Pucking Around, where there were too many threads that kind of weren't followed. All of these threads that are woven through, you figure it out. But like lots of Lucy Score's other series, there is a through line of all 3 of these books that don't get solved until the 3rd book. Like there are Nash, his brother, about halfway through the book gets shot. And you're like out of nowhere. You're like, what? Like, there is an undercurrent of menace throughout, but it's pretty fucking shocking.
Can we put that on a t-shirt? Undercurrent of menace.
Undercurrent of menace.
Let's rename the podcast. That's great.
But it's like he gets shot, and they don't actually find out. They don't find the criminal who did it until the 2nd book. The end of the 2nd book, and then. But
they have a thought about who it is.
Yeah. No, that they suspect that it's this asshole Hugo guy that's dating Tina, the bad twin, the evil twin. But he ended up not doing it. And spoilers for the 2nd book. It was actually okay. Zip it.
We're not talking about that book. You read too much.
But along with the undercurrent of menace, wink,
t-shirt,
the brothers like fucking fist fight. You know,
Yes.
like
Right away.
Yeah, they straight up beat the hell out of each other in the middle of the lawn. And you know, I the brotherly dynamic when they were still pissed at each other, they were both kind of hitting on Naomi.
They were competing a little bit at the beginning.
They were competing a little bit at the beginning. And I think it was pretty quick that he meaning Knox, like actually liked her a lot, and Nash was like, all right, okay, you know, I gotta back off. But he still flirted with her a lot and pissed off Knox to no end. I mean, it was crazy, but also their relationship is also like witty barbs and back and forth, and much like Naomi and Waylay, who like they're still feeling each other out and like trying to figure each other out. They had a very fun relationship from the beginning too.
I loved Waylay.
Yeah.
Did you and I ever fist fight in our lives?
No.
Should we start?
Fight Club.
Fight Club. Donley Fight Club.
Yeah. With the big oversized gloves on.
Those giant ones that are like 3 feet big.
Yeah.
That would be great.
That would be fun.
Or sumo suits.
Yeah.
Although we kind of have sumo suits on.
Yeah. I think we're already wearing our sumo suits.
Believe it or not, we've got those on.
And I love Liza J too, the grandma.
She's great. I think there's you know, these themes of like family and family dynamics, and loss is a big one too. And Liza J is still grieving the loss of both her husband and her daughter, right? Yes, it was her daughter that died of cancer. So, you know, she's living. So Naomi comes to town. She meets Knox. She has nowhere to stay. Suddenly she's in charge of Tina's 11-year-old Waylay. And is that a claw? Do I hear a claw? Ain't no laws.
Pinky out.
So Knox takes Naomi and Waylay back to his grandmother's compound, essentially. So there's a big house and then there's 2 cabins, and he lives in one and the other one is just open. So he lets Naomi and Waylay stay there for free. So then they start a relationship with Liza J because, you know, thank you for letting us stay. And then Naomi starts cleaning her house as like repayment because she's not paying rent, and they develop a really fun relationship, and Liza J takes them under her wing, and it's like, you know, she's finding a purpose, I think, again after loss.
Yeah. Well, you know, she starts helping garden, and Waylay, you know, each character in their own right has a full backstory. You know, they're very well fleshed out. They all have, and she does it in little mini paragraphs, but it explains a lot about them. You know, when explaining about Liza J, she lost her daughter to illness, then a couple years later lost her husband, the love of her life, and then the big house used to be a bed and breakfast, which she shuttered and shut down. So when Naomi comes in, all the curtains are closed. It's very dark and whatever. But like in 1 or 2 paragraphs, she like explains the entire backstory of Liza J, and you just get it. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. And she you know, she does that with Steph, Naomi's best friend. She does that with Jeremiah, the co-worker of Knox's in the barbershop.
Steph and Jeremiah to have a chat, like a book.
But they get together in book 2.
Yeah.
And then I have a note in here. Chapter 9, page 92. Naomi sees Knox's wang for the first time while he's peeing off the porch.
That was a great scene. He like lets his dog out first thing in the morning to pee, the dog to pee, and then he's just peeing off his back porch because I think he's used to not having anybody around him. And she's like enjoying her coffee. I can just see it all happen. It's like
very visual. It's
very visual. She's like sipping her coffee. Naomi loves coffee. Why I'm drinking coffee. And so she's like sipping her coffee like a dainty woman. And he just comes out like dick in hand, like pissing in the yard. That was great.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And his dog, Waylin, Waylay and Waylin, Waylin's the dog, was just like the dogs added a whole other layer that was really cute.
They're so Liza J has 3 dogs and Knox has 1, and when the rest of the crew, like Fiona, Fee, the bar manager that Knox also owns a bar in addition to a hair salon.
Yes.
But the business manager, Fee, is like, once again, in 2 paragraphs, she's like, we're at family jujitsu lessons. I'm about to go tap out my son. Like she's kind of a rocker chick. Oh, and the Shark Week thing at the bar when he gets them like a brownie plate because all the women at the bar's periods sync up and they're all like mean to all the customers and everything. I mean, it's hysterical.
I didn't know how I felt about that. It was very funny reading it, but I was also like, it sounded kind of like a man was writing this, but then there were certain things that I was like, that's pretty accurate. But so the Honky Tonk is the bar that Knox owns, and all the people that work there, they hire people like Naomi right off the bat. And so his manager, the business manager, hires Naomi without talking to Knox, even though Knox is like, I hate this chick. She sucks. She's taking over everything. And so Naomi gets hired anyway, and then there's the tension in the bar. But everybody loves Naomi at the bar. And then, it's this like crew of like funny women. Like Silver's
the bartender.
Is
Max,
one of the bartenders.
Yeah. Max is a waitress.
Fee.
Fee is the manager.
Yeah, and then Naomi and there was a guy. They hired a guy at like later on in the novel to add more masculine energy to the honky tonk, and something like happened, and he was just like frozen at the bar, and he was like, it was great. But yes, Shark Week is a great addition. Like nobody goes to the honky tonk that week because they just know that you walk it, like they were describing. Lucy Score was describing. You walked in and everybody was just sitting at the bar, stuffing their face with brownies. Like, what do you want to drink?
Well, and she had those like monikers that she would throw out, like Shark Week, or at one point the town was calling Naomi not Tina, and not Tina. That made me laugh. And they were hacking somebody's phone password or whatever. Maybe it was Tina's, and it was 6969, and that made me laugh out loud because you still have your email, your personal email with 69 in there.
Okay, it was Yahoo, and I made it in the 6th grade. Thank you very much. Still use it.
Oh man, that was funny. And we haven't talked about it yet, but he very early on starts calling her Daisy, which I love, as a nickname instead of Babe or Baby or whatever else. He does say that now and again, but not in that super yucky way that I don't like. But yeah, because she was wearing daisies in her hair, so we just started calling her Daisy, and I was like, that's a great name.
She left. So she shows up in this town because she ran away from her wedding.
Yeah,
what's
left
that called?
the day of her wedding.
Runaway bride.
Yeah,
and so she shows up in Knockemout wearing a wedding dress, and she's her hair in an updo with daisies.
She had changed.
But she had the dress.
She had the dress
her.
in her hotel room. But also it was funny because you had been telling me about this book for a long time, but I, because it didn't have my cute cartoony cover art, it just had flowers on the front.
This is cute.
Yeah, but it's not cartoons. Like, I didn't know what the book was about by looking at flowers on the front. You don't
need to know.
So, I'm pretty sure that's why I avoided it for so long, because I couldn't tell what it was about. If there's a couple baking pies, it's a pie shop, or there's a guy in football cleats. It's like, he's a football player. But just
you could just read the description.
What? No.
You need the picture.
It's got to grab you.
Okay.
The cover's got to grab you. But and then the flowers still didn't make sense on my first reading until I read it this time, and I went, oh, there's daisies on the front because she has daisies in her hair and she's Daisy, and it took me a little longer than I'm comfortable with to figure that fucking thing out.
Well, it's a long one too. I mean, this is This is 600, 558, 580. So it makes sense that you glazed over some things.
Yeah.
550 exactly.
But I knew you liked it, but it definitely surprised me in the best way. Like I very much enjoyed this, and a lot of her other books that deal with like the small town stuff. I think I've been telling you about her,
the death becomes her, or like dead in the yard, or
no, there's those which are great, but then there's another bootleg series about
Lucy
another
Score?
another small town. I think she wrote half of them with somebody else.
Oh, okay.
So like they go back and forth writing the novels, but yeah. So I think there's 7 in that series, and there's another thing where there's a murder. This girl is murdered, and throughout all the books, it kind of weaves through this. Like, who did it? Was it one of the family members? Was it, whatever? And they're good. Very much enjoyed
on
those.
my list. Can I listen to them, or do I have to read them on the page? It takes me longer.
I can't remember.
All right, I'll look into it.
But yeah, so during this whole time too, while all that other stuff is going on, Naomi is trying to adopt Waylay or get guardianship of her. And so, like, CPS has to come around and visit her, and the first 2 times she does that, she's like screaming at Knox in the living room, and it's
she's like half naked.
Yeah, she's like, I hardly ever yell at men in my living room, my God.
The caseworker from Child Protective Services shows up at the most inconvenient times. I love how that resolved. For the record,
yeah,
they ended up getting coffee towards the end of the book, and she was like, I just yelled at my kids, in getting out of hockey. So the caseworker, but yeah, so it was really funny. She kept showing up at Naomi's house when just everything was going wrong. Like, she was wasted one time, she was naked. It was,
yeah. Well, and they were, I forget,
still a better guardian for Waylay than the evil twin.
I still forget the context, but Naomi was saying something to Knox, and he's like, I don't pout, I ponder in a manly way. I was like, that made me laugh. That made me laugh so hard.
I would love to meet Lucy Score in real life, because she's funny. I mean, the jokes, just the way that she slips stuff in. There was 2 things that I marked in this book, which is your usually marked stuff. All I marked was when Naomi called Knox a ruiner of vaginas.
Oh yeah,
which
I got that written down too.
And it's because it's like smut, sexy scenes, steamy, and then it's just like he was like a ruiner of vaginas, and it just made you laugh in the middle of that sex scene. And then way later, I was just looking at the book to see what I had marked, and it was like, I'm only going to tell you this deep dark secret if you promise not to be like those stupid Muppets in the balcony yelling down and like heckling the actors. And it just made I'm not telling you anything if you're going to interject like one of those old man Muppets in the balcony. We'll both just die of starvation. I am literally going to use that in my real life.
Yeah, that was very funny. But and sneaking that's kind of funny stuff in. She when Knox met Steph, Naomi's gay best friend, for the first time, they're crushing each other's hands in a handshake, and Waylay is like what are they doing? And Naomi's like, it's a man thing, and Waylay's like, oh, like pooping for 45 minutes.
Precisely, with your phone.
Exactly. And then Steph is just dropping, Steph, part of Naomi's found family, is just dropping knowledge on her, like left, right, and center. Like, don't apologize to other people for decisions you make for yourself. Like, whoa, and this is during them having a conversation of like, do you think the grumpy next door guy's hot? She's like, that's one of my favorite tropes. And
I love, I think that's one thing that she does really, Naomi is the way that she is because she grew up with Tina, this twin who always ruined everything from childhood. And so she has this incessant need to please people and to be, liked by everybody, because her twin sister growing up was not, and didn't care, and would get them in trouble, or would because they're twins, she would take her place and say I'm Naomi, and then do something bad, and Naomi would get in trouble. So she was I liked how you really understood why Naomi and Knox made the choices that they made, because you know their backstory. I'm a social worker. I'm so curious. Like, I just feel like that informs who people are so much, and you really get that in these books.
Yeah, before they meet Steph, just to go back to let's keep it on, all the sexy times on track here. He rubs his wiener on her in Vicky's Secrets in the mall when they're going shopping.
Who?
Knox. When
Knox rubs his wiener on Naomi.
On Naomi.
I thought he just bought her underwear.
He did buy her a bunch of underwear, but as they were trying it on or whatever, he was like rubbing up on her.
I must have glazed over that part. I remember him buying her underwear in Victoria's Secret. I don't remember it. That's like really gross.
Yeah, like rubbing up on it.
A guy in Victoria's Secret like rubbing his dick on a woman, I would like probably call security.
So
I would call Paul Blart for sure.
Yeah. Well, and then Steph, after they are introduced and he finds out that Naomi is like kind of falling for this grumpy guy, he goes like, I'm gonna have a conversation with him, gets him a cup of coffee, and like wakes him up in the morning to like talk to him, and they have a heart to heart of like, he's like, don't hurt my friend. She's vulnerable, but she also likes you, and I think you might be good for her, but don't do it if you're going to fuck it up. Like, they have a very heartfelt conversation, and at the end, Knox is like, are we done? I'd like to get back to not having you in my house. and he's just dropping like truth bombs. He's like, he goes back to her, and he's like, maybe he's telling Waylay, I forget, but he's like, you get to decide how you show up in the world. No one else gets to dictate who you are. Who you are.
Yeah.
No one gets to dictate to you who you are.
Seeing Knox with Waylay specifically, and like I love her soccer games. This 11-year-old got a yellow card for like 3 soccer games in a row because she kept swearing every time something bad would happen. I was like, oh my God, this is my future. This is what I'm looking at as a mom who has not stopped swearing. And and so like Knox is like, listen, you can't swear during the game because you need to be able to stay in and score. You can only swear when we're watching football. That's it.
She's like, okay, I'm going to hold you to that. And he's like, yep.
Promise? Yep. And he's like, yeah. And so he was so cute with Waylay, and
their relationship together was great. I mean, when he pulled her aside in the barbershop when they went to get haircuts together, and she was saying how when she was bad, her mom would cut her hair because she did something wrong or whatever, and she's telling one of the other people that, and Knox is over doing something else, and he comes over and pulls her aside and pulls her around and goes, your mom's an asshole, like she sucks. And she shouldn't have done that. This is not on you. This has nothing to do with that. I'm sitting there going, kittens. I'm like, oh my. He pretty much just explains that her mom's a piece of shit, and Naomi would never do that to her. Yeah. And it was like, whew. And he has this whole counting to 10 thing too when he gets mad, where he's like, 2, 3, 4, and she keeps being like, "Are you counting to 10?
Are you counting to 10?
You big dummy!"
Like, yeah, everyone can see that you're counting to 10.
Yeah, well, and they, and it's right after that, I think, where they bang for the first time, and their first kiss leads into like doing
bang
it real quick. And so my 3 favorite lines from that where she talked about her unshackled boobs, she's just like yeah, it's super nice when you have unshackled boobs or whatever. And I was like, that's a great line. Professional ruiner of vaginas, like you noted. I wrote that one down. And then the third one was thick purple-headed leader in the world of erect penises.
That's gross.
When she was describing his wang, I was like, oh my God.
You. I followed along on that.
Oh, did you? You got it? Okay.
Believe it or not.
I thought it might have been a little obtuse. And then fucking Naomi's parents arrive literally the next morning.
Mm-hmm. That's
so she hadn't told them why she left, what had happened. Yeah. We come to find out that her husband to be smacked
Her
her.
ex-fiance.
Her ex-fiance smacked her around the night of the rehearsal, and she packed up and left.
Once more before.
Right. He had been physical with her at least once before, but it could have been multiple times. But she left the night or the morning of the wedding and jumped in the car and hightailed it. But we come to find out Steph never liked the guy. The parents didn't really like the guy. They were happy that she had left, but they were on a cruise for 2 weeks. So they didn't even know that they had a granddaughter, where she was, that she had a granddaughter, like any of the stuff that was going on. And so they show up the morning after this, epic bang sesh and are like, hey, and Knox just like walks down in his jeans without a shirt on and is like, how you doing? How's it going? Like just unperturbed that the parents are there, and but Naomi is freaking out. My note is Naomi's parents arrive post-coital.
Yes, exactly. I think he came down in his boxers and then his jeans, because his jeans were in the kitchen.
Oh, right. She kicked him underneath the sink or something.
She like stuffed his shirt in a cabinet, and I think she was hoping that he just wouldn't come down, and he was like,
like, yeah, no,
right on down.
I'm a grown man. I don't give a shit.
And the mom was like, oh, wow, he's
nice,
handsome.
honey.
She was like, good job. And the dad was like, not happy. It took the dad a while to come around in the best dad
way. Yeah.
But the mom was funny, like, oh, wow, look at your abs. Like, what's your diet? The mom was great. But yeah, so it was, and they found out where she was because Steph tattled on Naomi. Naomi, again, didn't want to disappoint her parents, didn't want her parents to be mad at her for leaving the wedding.
Or worried,
Or worried, didn't want to, let them know that Tina was in trouble, or that she was like, I should let them have, this is the first trip that I think they'd ever taken as long as Naomi could remember. So she didn't want to interrupt the trip. That was the excuse of why she didn't email her parents.
Yeah, well, and shortly after that too, now that like the emotional buffer of the mom is there to kind of like support her or whatever, Naomi goes all mama bear on the teacher at the school that was being mean to Waylay, and Waylay's like, oh, she actually does care about me, when Waylay was going to put a computer virus and mice on, in her classroom or whatever.
I got the computer virus, but she was just going to release the mice in the classroom?
Yeah, she had live mice that she was just going to release in the classroom.
I was like, why is this kid holding a box of mice?
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
And so they all conspire to sneak her out of the room, and it turns out that Tina had been banging this teacher's husband, and like not on the QT. Like it was wide out there. Yeah. Everyone knew. And the teacher was taking it out on Waylay, and Naomi was like, rawr, and straight up went after it. And and then Naomi and Knox go bang in a field. Front seat fornication, as I wrote
down. What was that field called? It was like the third base.
Third base, yeah, third base field or whatever. Yeah. And then this was weird. I don't know if there's too many other books that like specifically called it out, but they actually slept together. Like they talked. They had a scene where like they actually just went to bed together. Yeah. There was no funny business, no hanky-panky, nothing. They just kind of got into bed and like said goodnight and they just like went to sleep. I'm like, you don't really see that too much in romance books. Like if they're getting into bed, they're usually fucking.
Yeah. Well, I think that speaks probably more to how in depth this book got. Like the reason they were so tired. They were too tired to fuck, basically, because like Nash had been shot, and there was just so like it was Waylay's first day at school. There was so much going on that they had each only slept like 4 or 5 hours in like 48 hours. So they were like exhausted. I don't think they could have fucked if they wanted to. So but I loved that they slept together. It was like a very cute scene. But that in the morning he was like, no, I'm going to go to your house and get all of the stuff that you need to get ready for the day and bring it here because I don't want you to leave. I like you here.
Yeah, I like you in my bed. So I'm going to get all your shit.
But then, like, why wouldn't he just go with her to the other house?
Yeah.
I guess that was a plot point because he needed to go see that her house had been, he needed to yell at her that her house was unlocked.
Yeah.
I'm realizing now why that happen, because that felt very like unrealistic to me. Of like, just let her go. It's literally next door. Let her go shower and get ready. You can go with her.
So that leads back to the undercurrent that we've been talking about.
Undercurrent of menace.
But so we find out that this whole time there's been a fire in a local storage unit. The trailer park where Tina and Waylay used to live, the manager's building was broken into. The people have seen what looked to be Naomi around town when she was clearly not there. And so you come to find out that the house has had stuff moved around in it, and Knox finds the back door open and yells at Naomi about leaving it open. And she goes, I never do. I always lock it. And so he finds out that there have been multiple break-ins at their house where someone has been stealing her clothes, and Tina's been dressing up and going around town dressed up as her. And you're like, that's fucking weird. Like, something's going on. And no one's heard from no one's heard from Tina or her boyfriend, her mysterious boyfriend, at all for weeks. But they've been apparently lurking in the surrounding area somewhere, which is like, oof, okay. And then, but yeah, so like, and then the ex-fiance shows up and like starts talking shit about the town or whatever else, and then Knox just beats the hell out of him in the I
love that his
bar.
name is Warner. He reminds me of the Warner in Legally Blonde that is her fiance as well at the beginning, who tells her she's not smart enough to go to Harvard. I mean, it's kind of like a carbon copy of Warner from that movie, because he's like an uppity.
Yeah, but he didn't beat Elle.
No, but he made her feel less than.
I mean, okay, sticks and stones.
Like it's hard. But Warner was like the perfect. As soon as she even wrote because his name was like Warner Robinson the Third or something.
Yeah.
And you literally read that name and you can picture him in your brain, whether you're picturing Warner from Legally Blonde like I was, or just this like asshole, popped collar Ralph Lauren uppity East Coast.
Yeah, one and right after that, like, he beats the hell out of him, and then Lucian, Lucifer, all three names for him, drags him out back, and Knox has to
specify with his face.
Yeah, but Knox has to specify he's like hospital, not morgue. Like, he has to like tell him not to kill the guy. And then they have they have the bar quickie after that, just a lot of mouth stuff. And then that's then the self-destruction begins after that. Like, that's when, he starts breaking down and pulling away, and I'm not good enough, and she's never going to be happy with me.
It was after he gave his dad that haircut. I thought it so it was like the bar scene, and then they go volunteer together at this homeless shelter.
Yeah.
So Naomi meets the dad. She doesn't realize who it is at the time. But she sees this like softer side of Knox, and she really starts falling. And then as she's like going over the edge of like, I think I love this guy, 3 weeks in.
he's like, nope, you're out of here.
You know what? I'm checking out. It's time for me to go.
Yeah, so, we've run our course or whatever in the pizza shop, and then she goes has a lovely conversation with the CPS lady, and then Lena. Then we meet Lena for the first time, Angelina Solovita or whatever, and she walks in like sex personified. And she
kisses Knox right on the mouth.
Right on the mouth. And
right on the kisser.
And she flips out. Naomi flips out, and Lena meets her in the bathroom, and it's like, oh yeah, we're not together, or whatever else. And then comes I think one of my favorite scenes in the book, which is their girls' drinking session at the biker bar.
That is a favorite. Yeah.
They all. So Lena takes Naomi and goes over there, and I think who went with them? Sloane.
Just the two of them to begin, and then everybody shows up. So then
Sloane meets them first.
Joins them, and
then Steph and the boys show up.
No, it was just Knox and Lucian, or I'm sorry, just Nash and Lucian. Then I think Steph met them. I think Steph was in France at the time. But
maybe he left.
So it was those 5 people, and then they weren't telling Knox where they were. And he
was flipping out.
He's like, where is everybody?
But they so they go to this bar, and it's a biker bar. Everyone's wearing leather and cuts, and it's like it's definitely pretty hardcore. And Joel is the bartender who looks beautiful bartender who kind of looks like, I don't know, like Silver Fox, like Santa Claus or something. Like it was a weird description, but he's like, oh, these women are way out of their element, and but they're serving him a bunch of drinks, and some guy walks over like, hey, any of you bitches want to take a ride on my hog or whatever? And Lena turns around and is like, fuck right off, I'll kill you, and or something like mean to him. And Joel's like, just, hey, everybody in the bar, shut up, like nobody come around these women, like alone. Totally makes it a safe space for them, and it was fun. And they they talk a lot of shit about the guys and whatever, and then it was telling because Lena is one of Knox's oldest friends. Once again, found family. They dated for a little bit. He broke up with her, and she just refused to stop being friends with him. And she calls him on a lot of his dumb shit, and kind of gets him to pull his head out of his ass and confront some of his demons. And that's when Knox just like caveman drags Naomi out of the bar, when they finally meet again. And like he like emotionally just pees all over her. He's just yeah.
I mean, on it, that makes, yes, that's accurate.
Right? Yeah. Just
what a way to put it.
Emotional golden shower. And they
that's another t-shirt.
Another t-shirt.
That t-shirt can be yellow
with pink writing.
Gross.
And so they have this very emotional conversation.
Is this claw number 3?
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, I mean it's Thursday night. I only put 4 in the bag though.
All right, better wrap it up soon.
So they have this emotional gushing, and then there's a fucking kidnapping. And then Tina kidnaps Naomi. Like she just shows up. So this is the first time you meet real Tina, in the book, and she is handcuffing her sister to
with fuzzy sex handcuffs
to the front of the car, and like that it becomes a whole nother thing. Tina Sucks is the chapter title, which
I love. Lucy, I wrote that down as a note on this entire book. The chapter titles, perfection.
Yeah, I loved it. Just Tina Sucks. I'm like, that's awesome. So there's a kidnapping. Everyone goes searching. They find her. They find out that there's this list that everyone's been looking for, and apparently Waylay stole it, and she's been harboring. Awesome. I mean, the whole thing is like cool. There's a shootout, there's like action. You're like, whoa, like this is supposed to be a romance, but like there's action.
And it made sense. It wasn't like shooting, like, a shootout for no reason. It like made sense that Tina got herself involved with this crime syndicate, and like just the way that they explain it all, and why Waylay was kidnapped, and then why Naomi got kidnapped by Tina, and how it all came together. It tracks, like it makes sense, which so many of these like rom-com Brad novels, like they don't always have to make sense. Like sometimes there's just shoot 'em up, but it's not really, there's not a point to it.
I mean, but she created her world so well,
exactly,
that like everything's kind of believable within it, I reading this Magnolia Parks book too. Oof. It's like everyone's just fucking everyone, and I hate it, but it's like that's the world she's built, so you kind of just have to live within that world. Is it toxic? Yeah.
Yes.
But like, it's like that's just the world. So, where that would, in a book like this, if there was straight up cheating, I would not like it. But in a book like that, you're kind of like, well, that's the world that they live in. I guess all these rich people just fuck each other's, girlfriends.
Put it
and boyfriends.
Anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a French prostitute. Just put it anywhere and apologize afterwards.
Thank you.
But okay, so literally going from emotional urination session to kidnapping to like they're not back together. He just told her what was going on. Then he goes and heroically saves her and jumps on top of her to protect her from a potential shooting situation.
Gunshot, yeah.
And then he just looks her in the eye and goes, "We're getting married."
We're getting married.
Doesn't even ask her. Just says, "We're getting
Tells her.
married."
Yeah.
And that made me laugh so hard. And then so like technically, the grand gesture starts with him saving her. But like, so I have my grand gestures notes here. I have saving Naomi and Waylay. Big ass birthday party for Waylay,
which is in the epilogue.
And then the surprise engagement at the birthday party is also another hat on a hat on a hat. And then the not telling her that Liza J was giving them the house, so surprising her with that too. So it's like, all right, he kind of won it back pretty good. But when he was at his lowest point and he went up to Nash and Naomi were talking over by the creek or whatever, and he was pissed and went up and was like, "If you want my leftovers, fine." I was like, oof. I'm like, there's no real coming back from that. I was like, that's pretty brutal. But she didn't seem to care all that much, I guess.
She moved past quite a bit. But that was just, I think that the way that it was just such his personality. Like, he waffled between an actual asshole and just like a grumpy Gus who's like, well, still heart of gold, but like I say grumpy things and that's his like persona. And he towed the line. There were times when he was just an actual asshole, and I think he really appreciated, or at least as the reader, you appreciate when like these strong women, like all the women at the bar are like, shut the fuck up, asshole. Like they don't, sit there and take it. They don't cower in front of his assholery. And neither does she most of the time. She doesn't like it at the beginning, but I think she comes to see who he's just the grumpy Gus with a heart of gold. And so I think that scenario specifically, I was like, oof, that's brutal. But also that's his personality.
Yeah, well, I think Fee says it at one point. She's like, "Stop scowling and Oscar the Grouching." I'm like, okay, that's a fun line. It's there's that weird I'm a protector versus I hate everything around me sort of thing going on. Like they hear about when they go to the mall to go school shopping and to Vicky's Secrets, he takes them there because he's heard through the grapevine that someone's going around town looking for them, and so he just absconds with them to the mall like 45 minutes away and doesn't tell them, just does it to protect them
under the guise of back to school shopping.
Yeah, of back to school shopping, and it's like it turns out to be Steph, and it turns out not to be a big deal. But like, it's one of those things where he's like, oh, well, it was the same thing. I mean, literally 2 chapters in, he's like, "Let me give you a ride to the police station." She's like, "No, like get away from me." You. And he's like, "No, I'm gonna drive you there." And and then he storms into the hotel. It's like, "You're not staying here." And then they go to the trailer park, and he's like, "You're not staying here either," and then gets him the house. It's like whatever. It was that blonde god of sexy fury is what she called him at the beginning. I was like,
she calls him Viking too, which reminded me of the pucking around.
Yeah,
goalie,
the Finn.
Yeah. All right. Tell me what you thought of this book, Ned.
I liked it. I liked it a lot.
How does it rate in like your beach read after dark world?
Beach read after. I mean, is this considered a Brad? Like, I don't even know. I mean, to me, this was.
I think because of how explicit the sex scenes are, this could qualify. Well, but the Brads are like the throwaway, just like smut novels. Like I think we're reading soon the Christina Lauren, the Beautiful Bastard.
Yeah.
I think that's like a legit Brad. But this is a very open door. I mean, the sex scenes are graphic.
Yeah, open door, but there's not a lot of them. I mean, there's.
That's true. I mean, you took notes. How you could tell us probably page numbers, percentages,
absolutely
positions.
Let's see. One.
There's probably five.
Yeah, that's him seeing the Wang doesn't count. I'm not counting Vicky's secrets. Over the pants rubbing. There's then the first kiss doesn't really count either. So there's the kiss that leads to the banging. There's the field front seat fucking. There's the bar quickie.
Where the horn keeps honking.
Yeah, the horn keeps honking. And then there's the bar mouth stuff. And that's pretty much it. Everything else is like
there's a quickie under the porch when their family's right on top.
They're making out, but they don't fuck. I don't think.
He goes down on her, I thought.
No, I don't think so. Mm-hmm. Maybe, I don't know. I'm pretty sure I wrote down all the sexy stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's not a ton of it in the book. I think because the rest of the scene is painted so well that this is a good book regardless of the romance nature of it.
100%.
It's very well written. The characters are very well fleshed out. The story is fun and engaging. There's very little loose ends that you're wondering about at the end. Every character is charming in their own right. It's except for sucky Tina and the bad guy, but it's top notch.
But they have to be there to create that undercurrent of menace.
Yeah.
So,
but even they're fleshed out to a certain degree. I think it's great. I
did
very
you
much
like
enjoyed
reading it better the first time or the second time?
I think the second time going through, I think I noticed, especially with the podcast in mind, I think I noticed a lot more stuff that I probably glazed over the first time, and not glazed over in a way like I didn't care, just didn't really hit me the same way that reading it for this. All the funny lines during the sex scene and whatever else, I was reading with an eye for that stuff. Mm-hmm. So, the purple-headed leader of penises.
Gross. I don't need to hear about purple heads.
Yeah, but and her descriptions are great too. I don't think I recognized some of that. She described, or Knox was describing Tina as having the skin, the color, and texture of an old ass leather couch. That's a great description. I think it's more. I think I noticed more the second time through. What about you?
I loved it both times. I made you delay this podcast because I wasn't done reading it, and I was like, I want to read every page of this again. I loved it the first time. I probably read it as I was really ramping up into my romance genre, but I loved it and could not. And the second book hadn't come out yet when I read this one, and I was so bummed because I wanted to be able to read through all of them. So I remember being really desperate for the second one to come out, and then really bummed because the second book is Nash and Lena's story.
Yeah.
And I wanted Lucian and Sloane's story, which is book 3. And so, but they're all out now.
And you haven't read that yet.
I am 3 chapters in.
Yeah.
And I'm already hooked.
I know.
Love it.
It's
so
great.
Good. So this whole series, highly, highly, highly recommend. I loved it equally the first time and the second time. It's just such a great escape because she builds such an awesome world that you can live there. You can pretend. Knockemout, like you said, the name is awesome. You can really envision the town. At least I could. And what a fun place to be. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but there's like
What a fun place to be with all the crime and motorcycle gangs
with
and
the
kidnappings and
undercurrent of
shootings.
menace.
Undercurrent of menace.
But it makes it exciting. And well, you've got these big broody men taking care of you, and
Yeah.
you know it's a romance novel, so like nothing bad's gonna happen. Well, I mean, bad stuff happens, but like in the end, it'll all work out, which is lovely when the world, you don't necessarily know if the world is, our world is going to be that way. You know, you can get it in a book.
Get in a
Reading
book.
a rainbow. So yeah, I loved it both. First time, second time. Knockemout's one of my favorite series, in my opinion.
In my opinion.
My opinion.
All right, Helen, what do we have up next week?
Next week, we are reading a true smut novel. This is Beautiful Bastard by Christina Lauren, and it is just Pound Town.
Hell yeah.
Front to back. There's not
Literally.
even gross. They're not even trying to pretend that like there's any storyline. Like this is not a hockey smut novel where there's like a hockey theme. This is just like two people in an office who are like, "You're hot, let's bone." So we're gonna try to find some like literary themes within this textbook textbook boning in an office.
On
Are you
that
excited
note,
to read it?
I am excited. On that note, thank you for listening, everyone. We appreciate you listening to Sibs Read Smut.
Stay smutty.
Stay smutty.
Stay smutty.
Smutresses.
Smutresses.
And out.